The 5th Global Conference on the Elimination of Child Labour says ending child labour will require increased social protection and monitoring of supply chain through a multi-stakeholder approach. The conference is currently taking place at the Durban ICC and seeks to look at why millions of children are victims to exploitative labour practices. Bongani Gema is on standby for more on this story. Bongani, what's the latest from your side?
We are still waiting for more delegates to make their way to the ICC. As you know, that the program is set to start at 11 with different side events to take place. One of those, Desiree, will involve climate change and its relationship with child labour. As you know, that even here in our province of KwaZulu-Natal, we've just come out of some severe floods that left severe damage across our province, especially here in eThekwini, where we are. You may have seen Michaëlle de Cock yesterday speaking to Diabo. Well, today she's here with me now to speak about this relationship between climate change and child labour. She's the head of research and evaluation at the International Labour Organization. Michaëlle, thank you very much for joining us today. Speaking of, you were saying that I think today a research has been released that speaks about this relationship between child labour and climate change.
Yes, thank you very much for raising this point, which is extremely important for all countries over the world. You know, no country today can say, I'm not concerned. We are all concerned by climate change. And our research aims at really informing, and research is made to inform policy, as you know, on what happens to the children in child labour as a result of climate change, the shocks, the floods, terrible floods, the heat waves, all the consequences. And you will see in our report, we talk about both direct and indirect consequences. Very easy to understand are the direct consequences. If you are a child working in the field, even in the field of your parents, and then you have heat waves, or let's take heat waves, your work become more hazardous. You can be hurt by the sun, by the heat, or you can have more snakes, or many things are direct consequences. Same, let's take many children I know everywhere go and look for water or for wood. They have to go further and further. So what was used to be 5 minutes walk become half an hour or 1 hour in very bad conditions. So that's very simple example of direct consequences. But we have also indirect consequences of climate change that we need to anticipate and we need to encompass in our policy. I will come back to that. One is the risk of migration. What happens if you are a farmer, if I am a farmer, in a place where my field, there is no more crop, the productivity decrease, I'm left without income. What can I do? What should I do? Most people either leave for some seasons to find a job elsewhere, or definitely. And with the migration, you have new risk of child labour. Yesterday we talked about education. If you migrate in a place where you don't speak the language or where you are not with the legal status, how do you go to school as a child? So again, a new driver of child labour. Same, the children may leave the work that they were doing and send to worse form of child labour, like leaving agriculture because there is no more income from the field, to go to mining sector or the hazardous work. So a new risk of increased child labour.
Michaëlle, from what you are saying, I'm hearing that you are saying that landlessness is actually also a factor when it comes to child labour. Now, how can policymakers use this research to try and curb this scourge?
Very important for both prevention and, let's say, protection. Prevention, I think it's clear. If you know that it's going to happen, you target your policy, you set up safeguards to make sure that the children affected by the climate change won't be at risk of child labour. Let's give one example, something totally different. All our governments are promoting green economy. You should buy an electric car, which is good because it has an impact on climate change. But then, at the same time, there should be safeguards to make sure that it's not children who are mining the products that go into your electric car. So you see, we need to link the policy on climate change and the policy on child labor, not to have two separate things that don't talk to each other. Otherwise, we face again an increase of child labor. Another example is the recycling of e-waste, which is good. It's good for climate, it's good for the planet. But we need at the same time that we promote that, and this is one of the recommendations, to encompass the child protection in it, to make sure that again we are not creating more child labor because we want to protect the planet. So really put the child at the center of our policy.
Now, are you getting the feeling that governments are on board to implement what you've just outlined for us?
Yes, very encouraging statement yesterday. And as a researcher, I was extremely pleased to see the recognition of the importance of data or knowledge to inform the policies. You know, all governments have limited resources, and all the resources are limited, and if you want them to be efficient, you need to be able to target your resources, your action to those who are at risk. And yesterday there were really many statements to say we need this data to make sure that we are protecting the more vulnerable, and that's quite encouraging.
Michaëlle, thank you very much for joining us. Well, there you have it, Michaëlle de Cock there from the International Labour Organization speaking to us about a research report that they've just released, which speaks about the relationship between climate change and child labour, saying that climate change sparks migration, which then puts people and children specifically at risk of being exploited, saying that this research that they've just released will help policymakers to use it to try and curb the scourge of child labour.